And welcome to Darvanalee Designs Studio, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're here for part 2 of our sew along series for the DD's Large Mountain Retreat bag. Now, if you haven't already got a pattern, head over to our website, which is darvanaleedesignstudio.com, and you can find the pattern there under DD's patterns. Get yourself a copy and then come on back. Today we are looking at all the center pockets that we've got to make. So there are a few, and it might seem a little bit daunting, but I can assure you the way that we do them are super quick and it's very repetitive, especially with those center pockets. So by the time you finish putting all these zips in, you should be an expert at it. Okay, so today we're going to be focusing on the pockets. The first pocket that we're going to look at is the mesh pocket that goes on the front, on one of the pockets in the center. Then we're going to look at the lining pocket, okay, and that is the flat pocket. And then finally we are going to be focusing on the center pockets, which there are 6 of. So there are a lot of zippers and it might seem a little bit daunting, but I can assure you with this step-by-step process that I show you, you'll be inserting zippers in no time at all. So let's get started. Alright, so here we are for part 2 and we've got a big day of sewing ahead of us. We're doing all the internal pockets today. So that includes the mesh pocket, the flat pocket, and also the 6 internal pockets. So we need a lot of stuff today. So if you haven't already cut out your fabrics, pause your video and head off and cut out your fabrics and then come on back and we can get started. The first pocket we're going to work on, we're going to create our mesh pocket, and that's going to be using a lace zipper, and you're going to need some binding strips for that and a piece of mesh. Now you can use Annie's mesh. I prefer to use speaker mesh, and the reason I like to use the speaker mesh is because it has that lining on the back of it, so the holes aren't so the things aren't exposed in there, so nothing can fall out or anything like that. So I just use that because I could get that. It was readily available. You can get it on eBay or anywhere like that. And yeah, you get a big piece of it and you can get several bags out of it. As I said, you're also going to need some what I'm calling binding strips, and they need to have their interfacing put on them, and you're going to need a lace zipper for that. Alright, for our flat bottom pocket, you're going to need your zipper tabs. You're also going to need a zip, just a plain nylon zip will be fine. You're going to need all your strips and bits and pieces for that, and if you've got the pattern, you can see there that it is actually, it'll say flat bottom pocket, and you'll have all those measurements there. Alright, so make sure you've got all those pieces there. Tick them off as you're going. That is another great tip. Okay, and then lastly we're going to be working on our 6 internal pockets. Now they're quite large pockets. You're going to need your zipper tabs for that. You're going to need your lining fabric and your exterior fabric, and you're also going to need your fusible fleece. Okay, and also some interfacing for the lining of the pockets. I've already put that on there to make it super easy for myself and try to cut the length of this video down. Alright, so grab all your supplies along with all your general sewing supplies you can see here. Now we've got wonder clips, we've got a pen to mark, we've got our rotary cutter, we've also got our thread snips and general sewing scissors, cutting scissors, and we've got some pinking shears. May not need that, but you just might. I've also got this Teflon sheet here because I'm going to show you how I bulk press my interfacing onto linings and stuff like that. I'm going to give you the general idea. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm going to show you what the general idea about that is, so you can save a little bit of time and get a lot of your interfacing done, and then you can just cut it out. I also have a clapper, and that is going to help me make my little binding to go onto my speaker mesh pocket. You're also going to need a sewing machine, general sewing supplies, so you're matching thread and all that sort of stuff, and you're also going to need an iron and an ironing pad, and possibly some best press as well. So grab all your supplies together and we can start moving on. So as I said, the first thing that we are going to be working on is the mesh pocket. So I'm going to put all of this aside for now, and then we'll get started on that. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to work on today is the speaker mesh pocket. So the first thing you need to do is cut that out if you haven't already done so, and grab your lace zip and some pins. Alright, so along the long edge you're going to put the zipper onto that side. So open up your lace zip And you can see here that we've got a raw edge. Now we're going to place the bottom part, so this is your zip, and you can see here that we've got two parts. We're going to lay this bottom part onto our speaker mesh, or your mesh, whatever you're using. Okay, and we don't want to lay it right on the edge, because what will happen is our teeth will get caught in when we close the zip, and we want to just bring that up, the teeth just up a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch. So you can see there it's about 1/4 of an inch, and then all I'm going to do is place a pin in there. And I'm going to work along this edge. So you want to be able to see the speaker mesh through the little holes. And just working all the way along, making sure that the teeth aren't right on the edge of that speaker mesh. So when I'm looking at my lace zip, you can actually see the top of the speaker mesh, just where those flowers, those top flowers are near the teeth. And I know that that gives me a good gap between the teeth and the speaker mesh. And as I said in the beginning, you don't have to use the speaker mesh. I just have it readily available, because where I am, I can never get that Annie's mesh stuff, and when from my suppliers, they're always out of stock. So I essentially gave up and found a different solution, and this is what I went with. You can find it on eBay. I'll leave a link down below of the supplier that I normally get it from. Alright, so we go all the way along. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to pop our zipper foot on, and we're going to stitch that down. Okay, so we've got our machine all set up. I've got my zipper foot on here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch that down in place. So you may have to spin it around or adjust your presser foot, your needle, and then you'll get it into the right position. So for me, I have my edge of my zipper foot just sitting on top of the teeth, and that will make it super easy for me to stitch it. Now you want to just start in a little bit, because it can be a little bit tricky, and you don't have to worry if you don't backstitch here, because you are actually going to put a binding over it, and that's going to conceal it. And I just slowly go along stitching that down. It works out that I'm stitching, if you're looking at your lace zipper and it's got a flower on it, I'm just stitching along that bottom edge of those holes. I'll just spin that around, and you can see I've just stitched along that line of holes on the flower. Okay, so you can see there that I've just stitched that, and it's in the bottom line. Now I'm going to do a second row of stitching, and I'm going to just go below it. If you've gone a little bit close to the zips, you can get about 1/8 of an inch, but I'm just going to go just below it and just catch those little lace bits there. And you can see there that I've just got 2 lines of stitching, and the zipper opens and closes. So I know that I'm not too close to the mesh. Okay, so now we're going to attach this raw edge to the top edge of the zipper. Okay, so now we need to get rid of all of our threads. And we're going to sew this next part on. So to do that, we're going to flip it over, and we're just going to roll this edge over. So you can see that we're just going to roll this edge, this long edge here, raw edge, and we're going to pin that into place. And we're going to go all the way along. Okay, so once you get to the end, all we're going to do is we're going to bring our other end of our zip up. So you can see there it's making looks like a tube. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to leave our zipper open, and we're going to lay those teeth along that edge. So you've got that raw edge there. We don't want the teeth to be right on that raw edge, so we want it just to be down just a little bit. And again, you're going to just look for the edge of that mesh to be lining up with the edge of your zip. So you can see there that it's lining up. Okay, and then we're just going to remove that pin that we put in there to hold the 1/4 inch, and we're going to pin our zip into place. Just slowly working our way along. You may need to put a few extra pins in to hold it in place, but you can see there that you can't see the speaker mesh as such, but you can see that it is actually going to be enough there to hold it all in place. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing that, and then we'll head back over to the sewing machine again, and we will stitch it into place. Okay, so you can see there that it's not going to be near the teeth, so I'm not going to catch that speaker mesh at all, and I'm going to conceal all the speaker mesh behind that lace zip. Okay, that is our lace zipper in, and you can see here that the zipper opens nice and easy. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make our binding to go on the edge and encase all this. Alright, so set that aside, and then grab your iron and your ironing pad. Okay, so grab your ruler and your binding and a pen. You're also going to need, you don't need it, but I like to use the basic glue, and then you're just going to get to your short ends and you're going to measure in by 1/2 inch. And the same on the other side. And then all I do is I put a little bit of the basic glue. You can use double-sided tape, or you don't need to use anything. And I just put a little bit of glue on each end. And then I will just fold that line in. Grab the iron and press that into place. And this is where I like to use my clapper too. It helps to set the seams and help to set the creases and all that sort of stuff as well. Alright, and then roll the other end over. Next, you're going to fold your piece in half to make a center crease. Then you'll open that back up, and it's still hot enough. You can just use your clapper or hit it, get it with the iron and put that on there to set that crease. So you can see there the clapper works really well for that. And then over to the other side and bring that in, and then you are going to fold it in on itself. Okay. Right, that's all ironing in. Now you don't want to overlap them, you want them to just meet or just be a little bit apart from each other, because when you fold it over, you want it to be sitting nicely. You don't want excess bulk in here at the short ends. All right, and then just grab your clapper and press that in place, and then repeat with the other binding that you have. At this point, because I know that it'll probably pop open as it cools, I just grab a couple of wonder clips and hold that in place. Okay, set that aside and repeat with the other one. And there you go, you have 2 of your binding strips. Okay, so set them aside and remove your ironing pad. Pop your iron out of the way as not to burn yourself. Okay, grab your wonder clips, your rotary cutter and your ruler. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to trim off these edges. Okay, starting at the end with the zipper stop on it, we're going to get rid of that. And I'm going to grab a couple of wonder clips. Just take these big ones out. And then I'm just going to pop a couple of wonder clips there just to hold it in place. All right, and then I'm going to grab one of my bindings. And I'm just going to slide that over the end. So you can see there that I'm just encasing the mesh pocket into that binding. Then I'm going to pop a wonder clip on there and I'm going to work my way down. Okay, making sure that my speaker mesh is all encased in there, and then just pop some wonder clips on there. And I'm usually over cautious with this one because it has a little bit of movement to it, and I pop 4 in there, and you can see there that that's just going to sit there nicely. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the other end. Now remember to open up your zip, okay, because we do not want to cut off our zipper pull. So just opening that up a little bit and just holding the teeth together just for a second. Grab yourself a wonder clip and just hold them there like that. Okay, and we're going to get rid of this metal stop here. All right. So I'm just going to take a little bit off and get rid of that metal stop, but I don't want to cut into the metal stop. So I'm going to go into the pocket just a little bit and just making sure, because you can see when you sew it, it does move a little bit, and that's why we're trimming it up. Okay, making sure that it's sitting nice and flat. If you're worried that it's not sitting flat, just sit your clapper on it. Use whatever weighted item you have, and that'll just hold it in place for you, and it's not going to move. Okay, now my metal stop on the zip is actually on there. I'm not sure you can see that or not, but you can see it's underneath the ruler here, so I'm not going to actually cut into it. And you know, the size that you cut off might vary from person to person. So this one is just, you sort of just eyeball it. You just want to make it nice and even so it's easy to get that binding on there. Alright, so I'm happy with where I'm going to cut, and I'm just going to take that off. Now just holding it in place, I just remove my rubbish and quickly grab myself a wonder clip, and I'm just going to pop that onto the zip there, and then one down the end, and then I know that that's going to stay nice and flat, and it's not, and I can move it around now, and I'm not going to have to worry. Alright, so I'll just get them out of the way, and then I'm going to grab my other binding, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. So I'll just remove that from there. Now this can get a little bit tricky up this end because you've got the zip and it's open this time. and I just wrap it around, and that's where I start, and grab the Wonder Clip and pop that on. And I know that it's all going to sit there and it's not going to come apart. And then I just close my zip a little bit. And then just make sure that my Wonder Clip is grabbing both ends of the zip. So you can see there it's now staying closed. Alright, so now I can just put the rest of the binding over the pocket and know that that is encased in. Okay, so we've done that, and now we're going to head off to the sewing machine, and on this inner edge here we're going to stitch that closed, and then that way our pocket will be finished and we can set it aside with no worry about Wonder Clips coming off or pins coming out and the pocket coming away. Alright, so let's head over to the sewing machine. Okay, so basically I just leave my zipper foot on for this. It makes it nice and easy to line up. We're going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch in, so sort of where that Wonder Clip is sitting. So about 1/8 of an inch all the way up, and we're going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Now this is a little bit bulky here, so just take it slow. If it doesn't work for you, start in a little bit and then back stitch onto it and then continue going. Now when I get to the end, because I'm trying to work with the zipper and stop it from moving, I just get my tailor's awl and I'll just hold that bottom part of the zipper there. So where the teeth meet, you can just see here, and hopefully I can get in a little bit closer for you. You can see there that I can put some pressure on that, and the tailor's awl is not going to come past that zip because I'm resting it against the teeth. Now I'm just wanting to do that because the zipper is open a little bit and I don't want that to move, and I'm going to keep my finger here at the end to stop the top part of it moving as well. So holding everything in place, I'm just going to continue along, and then once my needle from the sewing machine has caught the zip, I'm fine to let that go, and then I can just stitch along. Still holding this top bit here because I don't want that zip to move. So you can see I've got my finger on the end here and also here holding it in place. And then I'm just going to stitch that, and then we're going to do a reverse and off again. Okay. So grab our thread snips and we can stitch the other side now. So you can see there that that's now holding in place, and I've got no fear of the zip coming off or anything like that. Essentially I've got a little mesh pocket. Now I'm going to repeat exactly the same thing for the other end. Make sure you've got your tailor's awl handy. Now you don't necessarily have to worry down this end too much because the zip is closed and it's not going to spread apart or anything like that. So this end is not as tricky as the end with the zipper pull, because the zipper pull end, it will open up. Now be careful too while you're stitching that you don't stretch your speaker mesh, just let it feed through itself. If you need help, use your tailor's awl. And if I need help with anything, I just place the tailor's awl on the front and I just use it as if I am putting my fingers there. So I can't slip with my fingers, but I can get that underneath the presser foot and help it feed through. So you can see there that I just had that and I've just ran straight over the top of it. I'm making sure that it's not going like this. So if you can see there, it's not going completely over. I'm just holding the edge of it where I can feel that speaker mesh, putting some pressure there, and then I can continue to stitch, and then I can run over the tailor's awl without hitting it with my needle. You just have to keep near the edge, not close to where your needle is. And basically that is just feeding through nicely. And we're almost done. And then I just make sure that my edges are lining up with the end because there's a bit of bulk there. And then I just come in and do a back stitch. And we're done. Alright, so we have now sewn our binding on there. Remove all your extra threads and everything like that, and then we can set that aside. Alright, so we're moving on to the next step in the pattern, and we're going to work on the flat pocket. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is you need to take your strips of fabric and you're going to place them right sides together, like so. And you're going to pop a couple of pins in there, or you can use wonder clips, whatever you feel comfortable with. And we're just going to pin them into place like so. Then you're going to take the other two strips that you've got, and again you're going to place them right sides together, making sure all your raw edges are lining up. Then you're going to sit them there. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your zipper tabs and you're going to fold them in half, and you're going to draw a line. So you can see there I've done that off camera. Alright, then you're going to take your zip and you're going to take one of your zipper tabs and about 3/4 of an inch away, maybe half an inch away from that zipper pull, you're going to place that like so, and then you're going to put a couple of pins into that. Alright. And now we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch that all into place using a 1/4 inch seam allowance on your strips of fabric, and you're going to stitch on the line for the zipper. Okay, so here we are back at the sewing machine. We've got our 1/4 inch seam allowance foot on there. Okay, that's just going to make it nice and easy to keep those 1/4 inch seam allowances. And what we're going to do is we are going to grab our strips of fabric and we are going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So to do that, have your needle in the down position. Make sure that your stitch length is at the correct stitch length, which is your default, is what you want it at this point. And we're going to just start stitching along, and you want to do a back stitch at the beginning and at the end. So we've done that one there, and you can see that we've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You might not be able to see it because of the colour of the cotton, but we've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to set that aside for now, and we're going to grab our next piece and we're going to do exactly the same thing. And set that piece aside. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your zipper that you put your zipper tab onto, and then you're going to stitch directly onto that line. And I like to do a reverse over the zip just to keep it in place a little bit better. Now my machine has an automatic reverse on it, so it only stitches 3 stitches, and to do that all I do is, instead of using that, I just turn my zipper around. And if you don't have a reverse on your machine, you can do this as well. Okay, I turn with the needle in the down position, so hand crank it down into position, I turn it around and I come back and stitch on that line, and again I stop and then I go back. And I do this because it just gives it that added security of it not coming apart or unraveling or anything like that. Probably a little bit of overkill, but I'm pretty rough on my zips, so if you're rough, I'd do it. Okay, All right, so I'm just going to take those pins out now. And you can see here that I've got that zipper pull there. So I want to get rid of that. So I'm just going to grab my scissors. And I'm just going to, as close as I can get to it, I'm just going to snip that off. Okay, and that leaves me with about 1/4 inch. All right, so now that we've stitched that, we've got rid of that, we can fold this back over, and you can see there that we've got a nice little zipper tab in place. Okay, and I don't have the bulk of that zip in the seam or anything like that. All right, so the next step is we're going to grab our iron and our ironing pad, and we're just going to only put the one zipper pull on at the moment, and we're going to do a little bit of prep work for the rest of our bag. Okay, so we have our 2 pieces that we sewed for the strips. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to set that seam, and then we're going to open that up. A little bit of my inner facing wasn't stuck on there then. Let's fix that up. All right, so we're going to open that up, and then we're going to press our seams open. And we're going to do this on both strips. And then we're going to fold it on itself, so we can see our seam is there right on the top. Okay, so we've got our exterior and our lining, and I like to use my clapper at this point, and that's just going to help to set that seam in place and stop it from opening up. Okay, so our next step is to do the exact same thing to this one here. Okay, so we need to make our flat bottom pouch, and we need to make the front of it first before we can add this piece. So we're going to take our zipper again, and basically what you're going to do is, I just use one piece at this point. I don't need to use both of them. All you're going to do is you're going to line up your zipper tab with the edge of the bottom part, and you're going to grab your pins, and you're just going to place a pin in there. Okay. And then down this end, I'm just going to pin the zipper in place. Like so. And then I'm going to do the other end as well. And these are just little tips and tricks since I've written the pattern that I've learnt to do along the way, just to make the job a little bit easier. So you can see there that I've pinned that edge up here. It's not getting sewn in there. It's not going to get sewn crooked or anything. This is just purely to make sure that we've got the next zipper tab in the right place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up the zip. So I might need to move that pin just a little bit. So I'm just going to open up that zip. Okay, and move it down a bit. So you can see there that this has stayed closed, and basically it's going to make it easier for me to maneuver it and whatnot. So I might just need to let that one go a little bit. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this zipper tab, and I'm going to just fold it in half and mimic what this one's doing, and I can lay that there against the edge of this one, and I'll just grab my pen, and then I'll just put a mark of where I've got to line this line up with this one here. And you can see here I'm going to get rid of that metal stop by doing so. Alright, so you can unpin it all now. So you're going to head to the sewing machine and we're just going to do a tack stitch just here to hold it together. Okay, it doesn't have to be on the line, it can be anywhere between that line and the stop. Okay, so you can see there that I've just tacked that into place. So now what I'm going to do, it's not going to open up on me, it's going to make it easier to place this into position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that zipper tab and on this line I'm going to place that like so. And then I'm just going to grab a couple of pins and I'm going to pin it into place. And then just like I did the other one, I'm just going to stitch that down. So I'm going to head off to the sewing machine again and I'm going to stitch that into place. Okay, so I've stitched that down and basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that metal stop again. So as close as you can to the metal stop, just snip it off. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to trim your zipper tabs, grabbing your pinking shears and not cutting into the zipper tape. You're just going to take off that excess. And then you'll repeat that for the other side. And there we go, our zip is now finished. Alright, so now that we've done our zip, we're ready to put that in, and I'm just going to make it super easy for myself today. You can use pins to put it in if you want. You can also use double-sided tape, which I don't have any of, but I also like to use this as well. So the easiest way to do that is just to separate your bits and pieces, and I'm doing it on the ironing pad because I am actually going to press it in. All I'm going to do is I am going to put a couple of little drops all the way along. Now I'm not going too close to the zipper teeth because I don't want it to gum up. Okay, I'm going to press that into place in just a moment. So lining up these raw edges with the raw edges of the zipper tabs. Now don't stress too much if they're not exactly in the right spot. Okay, so they might hang out a little bit. We can trim that up a little bit later. Okay, so just laying that there and just pressing it down. Then I'll grab my iron and just using the tip, I'm going to press it a little bit without going onto the zip teeth. Okay, and what that's going to do is that's just going to dry it in place, and then it's going to make it super easy to head over to the sewing machine and just top stitch that down. Okay, so you can see there it's starting to stick. If you find that it is not sticking for you, just gently lift it up and flip it over, and then you can iron the back of the tape because you won't run the risk of getting onto the teeth. Okay, and just do that until it's secured in place. Now it doesn't have to be super stuck or anything like that, it just needs to be stuck enough so you can handle it at the sewing machine. Alright, I'm going to turn that around and then I'm going to grab my next strip with the seam facing towards the zip, and again you can see there that they're going to line up. I grab my basted glue and I just put a couple of little drops along, or a little bit of a line, it's up to you. And then again I'm just going to pop that in place. Now before you stitch this in place, you will have to put your zipper foot back on, but it may not be necessary. So you might be able to get it to stitch well enough, because we're just going to be 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here. So it is definitely going to stitch on the tape of the zip, and you probably are not going to hit these teeth. So just have a try of that first and see how you go. Alright, so I'm going to press that into place, okay, without getting on the teeth, and then I'll flip that over and give it another press. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch that into place and then finish off our flat pocket. Okay, so now all we're going to do, as I said, we're going to top stitch that into place. So you're going to lengthen your stitch length up to about a 3.0 to a 3.5 depending on your machine. Like I always do, get a little piece of fabric and just do a test. I already know that this is at a good stitch length, and at this point you can just open up that zip a little bit and pop your needle into the down position, and using about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, you're just going to stitch straight across. So you can see here, and I'm not sure if that's showing up or not, but the edge of my foot here is going to run along the edge of the fabric. Okay, and if need be, grab your tailor's awl to help you out and get you started. Okay, so we've just finished doing our zip of our flat, the front of our flat pocket. You're going to open your zipper up. This is a must. You must open it up, otherwise you're going to be doing some unpicking, and we don't want to do that. Now you've still got a piece of fabric left from that pile that you had, and you're going to basically, this is your back for your pocket, because at the moment we've just got a front and now we're going to make the back. What you're going to do next is you're going to take your back piece and you're going to lay it on the front. Okay, just lining up all your raw edges, and then you're just going to pin that into place. And you're going to pin all the way around, and then we're going to sew all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And the reason that you've got it facing up, you have to have your fabric facing up, your pretty side of the fabric facing up, because when we turn this out, we don't want to, you can see on one side we've just got some interfacing. Now this gets sewn onto our lining, so we don't want to waste fabric by putting it on there. So this way we get a lining without actually having to make a lining, if that makes any sense at all. So once we've sewn this into place, I will turn it out and I'll show you what I mean. It's a little bit tricky because normally you wouldn't do this. Normally you would have, you know, 2 pieces of lining, and then you'd sew it all together, and then you turn it out, and voila, you've got exterior on both sides, you've got lining on both sides, and all the rest of it. But this time we don't need that, so because this is getting sewn into the lining. All right, we're almost there. Now I don't want this to move, so that's why I've been a little bit excessive with the pins. All right, just starting on one side, we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. So you're going to go down one side, come to here, pivot, go down, pivot to this corner, and go all the way around. So I'm just going to move my sewing machine back and we can get started on that. All right, so hopefully you can still see that a little bit. There we go. All right, so just starting on one side, making sure before you start sewing, double check that you've opened up your zipper. All right, and grab your tailor's awl in case you need it, and just start stitching. Alright, get rid of any of your threads that you have got hanging off. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab our pinking shears and we're going to trim that all the way around. And that's just going to reduce some of the bulk when we go to sew it down. Alright, so now we're ready to turn that into the right way. So basically you're just going to reach in to your corners and you're going to pull them out. It's nice and easy to pull out. Okay, and if you've got a poking device, just give it a little bit of a poke. Don't use your scissors. Okay, poke those corners out, same as this one. Alright, and there we go. We have a flat pocket. It doesn't look like much now, but it will go onto our lining and then it'll be nice and easy to use. You can pop anything you want in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give that a really good press, and then we will be moving on to the internal pockets. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to make sure that we give this a really good press, because we do have a raw edge in here. Okay, and what we're going to do is when we stitch this down, we'll actually essentially French seam this when it goes in. So make sure that you really do give it a good press, poke all your corners out, put the clapper onto it to set the seam. That always helps, but you want to make sure that your interfacing part is not seen. So you want your seams to be really, really well pressed. Okay, and you know, you can put your hand in there and run your fingers along the seam, and that always helps to roll them out. Okay, you can see there that that's not poked out enough, so I'll get in there with my poking tool and give that a really good poke. Get that out there. There we go, that's much better. It's as far as it's going to go. Alright, now just rolling them in your fingers, that can help set them as well. So you can see there, just doing that where that zipper pull tab is, it's just rolling quite nicely. Okay, now just be careful not to run over the teeth of the zipper as well. You don't want to melt them. And that is our flat pocket done. Alright, so set that aside with your mesh pocket, and now we're going to start on our internal pockets. Okay, so now we are onto our internal pockets. So the first thing that we have to do is make the first pocket, which is the pocket at the front. And to do that, we are going to need to grab our mesh pocket and have that here as well. Alright, so you're going to need all your zippers, so you'll need 6 in total. You're going to need 6 linings with interfacing on them, and you're going to need 6 outer fabrics with fusible fleece on them, and then you're also going to need some zipper tabs as well, and there is 12 zipper tabs in total. Alright, so basically I'm just going to move all this out of the way, and we're going to get started on bag number 1. Okay, and I call them bags because they look like little bags, but it's actually pocket number 1. I do it all the time. I don't know why, I just do. Alright, so move your zipper out of the way, grab your one of your exterior fabrics and one of your lining fabrics, and then you can set all the rest away. Alright, So make sure that you've got your fusible fleece on and that you have got your interfacing on, and then you'll be right to go. We'll set that aside for a moment, and you're just going to take your exterior fabric. Okay, and we are going to add our little mesh pocket on. So make sure that you've got no more threads or anything still attached to your mesh pocket. We want to get rid of all of those. And then all you're going to do is you're going to fold this in half like so. Okay, making sure that your raw edges are aligning. And if you've got any excess interfacing there, just get rid of that. So I'll just turn that around and grab my rotary cutter. I'll just trim that excess off, and that gets rid of that. And I don't have to deal with it. All right. Making sure that there's no crease in the fold or anything like that, and you've got a nice straight line. I'm going to turn that around, okay, and you want the folded part to the bottom here, okay, and then we're just going to give that a little bit of a press and to create a crease. Okay, and then that crease is not going to move on me. Okay, so I've got my ruler, and I'm just going to grab my friction pen. Okay, and I'm just going to put a mark there, a mark there, and a mark there. And then I'm going to grab my mesh pocket and then open this back up. And then I'm just going to align my mesh pocket on those lines. Okay, and then I'm just going to pin that into place. Okay, put one in the middle and one at the end. Okay, so that is, look, that's sitting on those lines quite well, and then when I fold that back up again, you can see that that is just up from that line. All right, and it should be, you know, equal distance either way. So if this side is a little bit too closer to the edge, then you'll unpin it and just shift it over a little bit. So you want to measure each side, and then that way it'll be sitting dead center. Okay, so now that we've got that sitting in place and you've checked that it's all measured correctly, what you're going to do is you're going to actually pin this nice and flat, not so it's bubbling up or anything. You want to lay it as flat as you can, and you're going to put some pins in, and it's going to hold it in place, and then we're going to head off to the sewing machine and we are going to stitch this down. Now you don't want to stitch right along the bottom here, and I'm going to have to move these zippers now, move these pins from the zipper, because I'm going to be stitching this center one, and I just want to make sure that my presser foot isn't going to hit the sides here or anything like that. You may have to move the zipper pull as well when you start sewing, but you want to get it as flat as possible. Now you can see here I've got this one in the center. That's just going to show you that there's going to be two pockets here. Okay, so you don't want to stitch along the top here. We're just going to stitch down one side, across the bottom, and then up. Okay, but you may have to move your center one because it might want to pull it up. So you could see there that that's just now relaxed and it's getting to sit nice and flat. You might be lucky and not have to worry about moving that one at all. All right, so I can see that this is now sitting in place, ready to stitch. It's nice and straight as well because we had those marks, and I've double checked off camera. I double checked the measurements and everything like that to make sure that they're okay. All right, so we're going to head over to the sewing machine again, and then we're going to start on one side. We're going to stitch down here and then across and then up, making sure that you back stitch at the beginning, at the end, and remember that that's a little bit of bulk there, so you may just have to hand crank it with your machine. So just take it nice and slow You don't want to rush it because you don't want to break a needle. If you hit that bulk too hard with any machine, you always run the possibility of breaking a needle. So just nice and slow, and then using a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, so we have our 1/4 inch presser foot on there still, and we're going to stitch an 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So you're just going to make sure that your pocket is nice and flat and it's not folded up or curled up in any way. And we are just going to stitch an 1/8 of an inch. And I always start with the needle down, and I do a couple of stitches and then I'll do a back stitch. Okay, so now you actually have your pocket sewn on. Okay, so at this point in time, it is just a zipper pocket that's just been sewn on, and you can pop things in there and it's workable. But what I like to do is I find the center of my zip, and then I just make a little mark, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stitch a couple of stitches here, miss the zip, and then stitch down, and then that's going to give me 2 slip pockets here. Okay, so I've just measured that and marked it out, so you can see here that I have got a mark up above the zip, and then I've got a mark below, and it's going all the way to the bottom. Now because this is going to go over the zipper teeth, you need to actually just stitch a couple of stitches to the zipper teeth, stop, okay, then jump over the zipper teeth and then continue stitching down. Okay, and I've got an equal measurement, and how I measured it, it was the part of the zipper that I could see. So from the edge of this binding to that center mark is 1 measurement, and then the same on this side, it's exactly the same. Okay, so they're 2 even pockets, and then so that way you've got a couple of little slip pockets there. Now to make sure that it's not going to curl up or anything like that, I am actually going to just pin it down. But those pins that I have got in there already, I'm just going to move them to the center of each slip pocket. Okay, so just like so. So you can see it there and there. All right, so I'm going to stitch that, and then we will be finished with this part of it. Now make sure that you do a back stitch at the beginning and at the end, because you want it to actually hold. And I generally like to do it a couple of times because you're going to be putting pressure on that pocket. So we're starting with the needle in the down position, I stitch, and then I back stitch. And on this particular machine, I just stitch the 3 stitches, and then the back stitch actually stitches that 3 stitches again. So I'm pretty lucky in that aspect. And I'm going to go back again. Okay, now I know that that is definitely secured in its spot. Going forward, and I'm going to come up to those zipper teeth again. I'm going to take my needle out of the down position, go across the teeth, and I'm just looking in my foot here, and I can see that I'm clear of those teeth, and that needle is not going to come down into it. And if you're not sure, put your needle in the down position. You're not stitching anything, lift it up and have a look, and you'll be able to see. So I'm going to come 3 stitches, and then I'm going to go back 3 stitches. And this is on the zipper part that I'm doing this, because you're going to be putting pressure on that. And back and go. And now I'm happy to go all the way down. And I'm just going to follow that line. And then when I get down the bottom, I'm going to stop. I'm going to go back, come forward, go back, and come forward. Okay. And now we have finished adding our mesh pocket on there. Alright, so the next step that we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a pocket. But first we have to create our zippers. Alright, so just to show you, and then I'm just going to snip this thread out of the way. That was my jump thread, and you can see there that now I can take these pins out. I've got 2 slip pockets, okay, just like so, and my zipper, you got your fingers crossed, should work. There we go. Alright, so that has given us a slip pocket and 2 pockets. So just to reiterate what we've done, I've stitched down here and I've created 2 pockets within this long one, mainly because the original pattern calls for a long pocket. While it works perfectly and I do store stuff in it all the time, it just does give me a little bit of grief, and you don't want to run the risk of the too much pressure on there, overloading it. We all do it, and it coming away. So my advice to you is actually to do the pocket like this. Okay, so we've got our mesh pocket on. Now we are ready to start assembling our center pockets. So this is our front pocket when we start aligning them up. So we can just fold that in half and set that aside for just a moment. Okay, and we're going to grab ourselves a zip. Okay, so we've got our zip, and I've just put a little mark there where I've got to line it up. You've got your zipper tab, you fold it in half, and you're going to put a line on it, exactly where that crease is. Then you're going to take that line that you've marked on your zipper, and you're going to line it up with the line that's on your zipper tab. Okay, and what I'm going to do this time, because I've got 6 of these zippers to make, I'm going to do a little bit of a production line. So grab your pins, okay, and you're just going to place the pin and mimic a sewn line. Okay, so if I fold that over, it looks like it's sewn. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close that zipper tab and then pop another pin into the end. Okay, and I'm going to mock up my zipper tab to make it easy to create the rest. So I've got to make sure that my zipper tabs are lining up with the edge of the fabric. So I'll just grab a wonder clip, pop that in there. Okay, then I'm going to come along here, and because I know that these zippers are bigger than I need them to be, okay, so then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab another zipper tab, fold it in half, okay, I'm going to draw the line, and most of the time I don't even draw the line, I actually just stitch in the crease. Okay, I'm going to pin that closed so it's even, just like so, and then I'm going to line it up on the edge of the fabric. Okay, and then I know that I've got to just place a pen mark on my zip of where I've got to line that up. Okay, so once I've done that, I can now move my zipper pull out of the way. I can grab a pin like I normally do, or you can stitch it down, up to you, and then I just weave the pin through. Okay, and then I know that this has to line up there, and then again I'll just pin that into place now. Okay, unclip this, and I know that that's where my zip has to be. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine. You've already seen me stitch these down. I'm not going to turn the camera so you can see. Alright, and I'm going to do that for all 6 of my zips. So once I've got this one in place, this will then become my guide, and then I will lay my zips out and I'll be able to mark them where I need to mark them. Okay, so I've sewn that on, and just like I did with the other one, I'm just going to get rid of that excess. because I don't need that part of the zip. And I'm going to grab my pinking shears and I'm just going to trim up even with the zipper tape. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat that for all 6 zips. Okay, so there are our 6 zippers, and basically you can see there that we've just trimmed off the excess zipper tape. Our zips are all complete. We still have our pulls on there, so make sure that you move them before you put that last one on or before you cut the zip. Okay, and what I like to do now is just get a little bit of baster's glue or you know, glue stick or something along those lines, and just put a little bit in each end of the zipper tab, and I just grab the iron and then I will just press that in place, and I'll do the same at the other end, and it just makes it a little bit easier to when it comes to assembling them. They're not moving around on you, the little pockets that we're doing. Okay, so repeat that to all of them, and next we're going to actually assemble our first pocket, and then you'll repeat that same process for all 6 of them. Okay, so we've done all our zippers. We've got 6 of them in total. I've glued all the zipper tabs down, and that's going to make it super easy to basically whip out our pockets. Alright, so the next step is to a pocket assembly. So you are going to need a lining, and you are going to need your first pocket, which is the one that has the mesh pocket on it, and you're also going to need 1 zip. Alright, so to make this super easy, we are just going to go through it step by step, and then I'm showing you the one with the mesh pocket, and then I'm going to show you again. Alright, so set your lining aside and just grab your exterior fabric, okay, and you're just going to lay that down like so, and then you're going to get your zipper and you are going to lay it with the teeth down, and then you are just going to clip that in place. If I can get one to clip out. Now you're lining the zipper tape up, so if your zipper tab goes a little bit past, that's fine, just let it go past, just lining the tab up. Alright, making sure everything's nice and straight, and we're right to go. Then you're going to grab your lining, and then you're going to lay that right sides down, like so. And then you're just going to pinch those clips and attach that there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine. We're going to attach our zipper foot, and then we're going to stitch this down, and you're going to reverse at the beginning and at the end, making sure that you really do that, because that needs to, we're going to flip it and it's going to put some strain on those seams on the side, so we need to make sure that we back stitch and also at the end. Okay, so we're at the sewing machine. I've got my zipper foot on, and basically all I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my needle in the down position, and then I'm going to stitch along. But before I do that, I'm actually going to open up my zip a little bit, just so I don't hit it with the presser foot, and basically we're going to just stitch straight down. When we get to that zipper pull, we'll stop and we'll zip part back up, and then that way I won't run into it or anything like that with the sewing machine needle. Alright, so we're just going to get started, do a little bit of a back stitch. Okay, so I'm going to take that out. I'm going to cut off my threads, and I'm just going to move the sewing machine out of the way, Right. Okay, and hopefully you'll be able to see this. So you can see there that I've stitched that down now, and basically what's going to happen is we're just going to take that lining piece and we're going to flip that over to expose the zip, and then we're just going to roll that down. So we have the right side of the fabric of the lining facing one way and the exterior fabric facing the other way, and our zipper teeth are facing up. All right, so now here comes the fun part. So basically you've got your pocket here, and you're going to take just your exterior fabric, okay, and you're going to roll that up to the zip. And you're not going to pin it here, you're going to pin it at the top. And then we're just going to grab some wonder clips and pin that into place again. Just make sure that everything is lining up with the edge of the zipper tape. All right, now all we're going to do is we're going to flip that over, okay, and you can see here we've got our lining, and then we're just going to bring the bottom of our lining up to match up to that zipper tape, okay, and just undo those clips and clip the lining into place, making sure that everything is aligning up and everything is sandwiched really well. Move those out of the way before I spill them, and then I'll just show you what it looks like when you look at it from a side view. Okay, so we've got two parts here. One is the exterior fabric and one is the lining fabric. So both the exterior fabrics are facing each other in that loop, and the same with the lining. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that, but you can see there that that's our lining fabric, and our zipper is in between. Okay, and now all we're going to do is we're going to head back to the sewing machine and we're just going to stitch that down. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to open up your zip, and then you're just going to pull that through. So just turning that through. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I will give this a really good press and make sure that all the seams are laying nice and over the zip teeth are working, and basically push all the lining down and all the rest of it, and make sure that my zipper is working correctly. But essentially that is it. We have our first pocket. All right, so you might be wondering, but what about the sides? Well, the sides are going to stay open because they get encased into the bag, so we don't need to worry about sewing them down. All right, so now you're going to repeat that for the next five bags, for the 5 pockets, and then you'll be finished with those. Okay, so now we're just going to move on to the second pocket. So basically, just like we did before, you're going to grab your exterior fabric and you're going to grab a zip, and you're going to place it with the teeth down. Okay, so your exterior fabric is right side up and your zipper teeth are down, and then you're going to grab some Wonder Clips. Okay, so we've done that second pocket again. We're just going to reach in and we're going to open our zipper up. Okay, and then basically all you're going to do is you're going to turn it through. Turning through is never graceful, is it? You always drop it and muck around with it and all the rest of it. All right, so I'm going to set that one aside and I'm going to continue on and do the rest of my pockets. So I will end up giving them all a really good press at the one time, and then I'll see you back here with all the finished pockets. Okay, so there we have all our pockets. We've got 6 internal pockets, 1 flat pocket and 1 mesh pocket. So basically what I've done is I've given these a really good press. Okay, I open the zipper right up and I've pushed the lining down and pressed that into place. We don't top stitch these pockets. It's just a little bit too difficult for some people to do on certain machines, so I omitted that from the pattern, and I haven't backstitched my original bag and it never gives me any grief. They've got stuff sitting in there, so the lining's always pulled away from the zipper anyway. So when you press them, make sure that you press the front of them. Make sure that your zipper tabs are going away from the main part of the pocket and you'll be fine. So basically, I know that this has been a massive video and a lot of work to be done. These pockets here, you can basically do them in a chain piecing style. Basically what I do is, especially if I've got a couple of them to make for people, I will just production line them. So once you get the hang of it, you'll end up, and you want to make some more, you'll end up just chain piecing them through. So you do one side, chain piece it through, go back, flip it out, chain piece the next part through, and you just get into a rhythm of it. And it's the same with the zips as well. What you do to one end, you do to the other, and excuse me, and you just need to make sure that they measure the same length as your bags. And that is it for today. So join me again for next week, where we start to put our internal pockets onto the sides and also do a couple other things like a pin cushion, and we attach those things to the lining. So have a great day, everybody. If you like this video today, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here and you like this video, hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and then that way you won't miss out on any future posts. And that's it from me today, and I'll see you all again next week for part 3. Bye for now.